Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction House taking a look at some of the guns and also anti-tank grenade launchers that are coming up for sale in their upcoming September of 2015 premiere auction. The last time I was here, they happened to have a Panzerbuchse 39, which was the German anti-tank rifle from the very beginning of World War II. At the beginning of that war, pretty much every country had an anti-tank rifle. They'd mostly been developed during the 1930s, and there was this idea that at the beginning of the war, tanks were light enough that it was actually feasible to have a single man-portable rifle that could penetrate the armor of a typical tank. Now, as World War II got going, that concept disintegrated very quickly. Tanks became much more heavily armored very quickly, and the anti-tank rifle concept became obsolete. So the Boy's anti-tank rifle was obsolete, the Panzerbuchse 39 became obsolete, the 20mm guns lasted a little bit longer than the 30 and 50 caliber ones, but even those were not useful for very long, against tanks at least. So what the Germans did, which is kind of interesting because most of the other countries just abandoned the guns entirely, well, the Germans had a lot of these things in production at this point. And their solution was to take the existing rifles, which were in an 8x94mm case, so huge cartridge, but actually a fairly small bore size. They cut the barrels down to about 24 inches, and they attached grenade launcher cups to them. The idea was they could develop a very heavy rifle grenade to use against tanks, something that was frankly too heavy to be effectively used with a 98K Mauser. But a gun like this was substantial enough and had all the hardware already kind of built into it to be a much more effective anti-tank grenade launching rifle. So specifically, the grenades used, they don't fit inside this tube. They actually have a stem that fits in here for rifling, and then the head of the grenade is even larger on the outside. And they use a shaped charge warhead, which allows you to actually penetrate a significant amount of armor. So the original grenades were 40mm, then they also came up with some 46 and even 61mm grenades by the end of the war. These were powered by a wooden bullet blank cartridge of this 8mm by 94 case. And these actually served with reasonable effectiveness to the end of the war. So why don't I go ahead and bring the camera back here, and let me take a look at some of the interesting grenade launcher features to this gun. The changes beyond just the barrel length and the grenade cup, the changes that were made when they converted the anti-tank rifles into these anti-tank grenade launchers. All right, the first thing I should probably show you, for those folks who haven't seen the video on the original version of this gun, is the action. This is a single-shot falling block design, and the falling block is activated by the pistol grip. So the grip itself pivots forward. In fact, you can see, if I get the sling out of the way, you can see the locking lug here that holds the grip up in position. When I push the grip forward, that locking lug is disengaged. So what I would do is pull this down. That will engage the ejector, pop out the empty round. I then drop a live round in it, pop that up. That lifts up our breech block, seals the gun, and it's ready to fire. There is a safety right back here. That's safe. That is fire. So pretty simple gun to actually use. Now the original PZB-39 rifles had an underfolding stock, and you can still see the mechanics of that here. However, when they converted these to grenade launchers, they fixed the stocks in position so that they will no longer fold. The reason for that is the recoil from firing a rifle grenade is substantially greater than a rifle cartridge, and I think it was decided that the stock folding mechanism wasn't necessarily strong enough to withstand a lot of rifle grenade use. And frankly, it was only moderately helpful in the first place. By cutting down the barrel to 24 inches, they've accommodated for they've made the gun significantly shorter already and made up for some of the compactness that you could get by folding the stock. Now, one of the more minor changes, but it is an interesting one that they made, was to lengthen the bipod. So these guns still use the same bipod as the PZB, but they cut them right here and added this U-shaped piece of metal to the bipod legs to give them about 2 inches more length. The reason for that was grenades have a lot more drop, and there is potential when you're shooting to need to fire at higher angles than with a rifle, and that requires elevating the front of the gun more. So one of the really cool, visually interesting changes that was involved in the grenade launching version of these guns was the sights. The original GrB-39 had, fairly typical rifle style sights, whereas the Granatbüchse has sights specifically for launching grenades. Grenade has a much steeper trajectory, and adjusting for range in very short distance increments is important. The point of impact of a heavy, a 40 millimeter rifle grenade at 50 yards is going to be quite substantially different from, say, 75 or 100 yards. So what they did on this sight is they have a series of wires to give you a series of crosshairs. You can see that they only go out to 150 yards. That was considered the maximum effective range of the gun. And we have a rear sight. The rear sight is, frankly, rifle-like right there. You'd line up the notch in your rear sight with that center wire and whichever range wire was appropriate for the particular shot. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm really happy to have been able now to take a close look for you at both the rifle version and the grenade launcher version of these guns. They're pretty cool. They're fairly rare. Happily, based on US law, these are not considered destructive devices because the actual bore diameter is only 8 millimeters, less than 50 caliber. So these transfer as just standard typical rifles. If you'd like to transfer this one to yourself, you will have the opportunity if you've got the money for it. Check the link in the description text below. That'll take you to Rock Island's catalog page. Of course, this is selling in this coming September premiere auction. You can look at their pictures and their description and create an account online, or come down here to the Rock Island Auction House and bid on it in person. Thanks for watching.